Hello there, welcome to Real Tales and Trails, where we entertain you with great and captivating stories. Pleased to have you listen to this podcast. So, let's begin.
The Unseen Evil. It was an ordinary evening in the small town of Carrington. The sky was painted with hues of orange and purple as the sun dipped behind the hills. People bustled through the streets, oblivious to the dark secret lurking beneath their peaceful existence. But Emma Westbrook, a schoolteacher living on the outskirts of town, had no idea that tonight would be the night everything changed. She had always been a curious soul, her life filled with books, nature walks, and an ever-present hunger for adventure. Yet, as much as she loved the quiet comfort of Carrington, she had always felt there was something off about the place. A subtle unease that she couldn't explain. Strange events would occur now and then, things that didn't make sense, like whispers in the wind when no one was around, or the feeling of being watched when she walked through certain parts of town. But Emma dismissed them as the figments of an overactive imagination. That was until the night of the storm. It started with a crackling in the air. A sudden drop in temperature. The sky darkened swiftly, as if a massive shadow had moved across the sun. Emma sat by her window, watching the first raindrops fall, when she noticed something strange. A figure. Standing across the road, just beyond the old cemetery. It was tall, its outline barely visible in the dark, but it had an unnatural stillness about it. Emma's breath caught in her throat, but when she blinked, the figure was gone. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the image as a trick of the light. But the unease in her stomach lingered, gnawing at her. The storm outside began to intensify, the wind howling and rattling the windows. She pulled the curtains shut, determined not to let her imagination get the best of her. But that night, sleep would not come. The sounds of the storm were drowned out by an odd, low hum, like the distant echo of a heartbeat, rhythmic and pulsing, vibrating the very walls of her home. It wasn't natural. It didn't belong. She tried to ignore it, but as the hours passed, the hum grew louder, closer, until it felt as if it was coming from inside the house. A strange dread settled over her, and Emma rose from her bed, her legs trembling beneath her. She crept toward the hallway, following the sound, and it led her to the attic. She had never liked going up there, dusty, dark, and filled with things her family had long forgotten. But tonight, something compelled her to go. As she opened the attic door, the hum intensified, almost deafening in its intensity. The darkness inside felt suffocating. With a deep breath, she stepped into the attic, her flashlight barely cutting through the inky blackness. And then she saw it. On the far wall, a shadow, darker than the rest of the room. It was moving, shifting, as if alive. The hum was now a pulsing thrum, vibrating her bones, and the shadow seemed to be growing, stretching toward her, its shape undefined but menacing. She backed away slowly, her breath shallow, her heart pounding in her chest. The shadow stopped moving, but the air around her grew colder, sharper. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise. There was something in the attic, something watching her. She turned to flee, but as she did, a voice whispered, cold and guttural, from the dark corners of the room. "You can't escape." Her heart stopped. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't even of this world. Panicking, Emma bolted from the attic, slamming the door behind her, but the voice followed her. It was inside her head now, whispering the same words over and over again, "You can't escape. It's already inside you." For the next several days, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The air in her house felt wrong, like it was pressing down on her. The hum never stopped, low and constant, vibrating beneath the floorboards. She would hear scratching noises in the walls, and strange cold spots would appear in random places. And always, that same voice, whispering in the back of her mind. It wasn't just in her house, either. At school, the children were acting strangely. They would stare at her, their eyes empty, as if something had stolen their spirits. It was as if the whole town was under some sort of spell, a curse that Emma couldn't explain. She began to notice other oddities, people's faces shifting when they spoke to her, their expressions frozen in grotesque smiles, their eyes empty and unblinking. Desperate for answers, Emma turned to the town's library, digging through old books and records, searching for any clue that could explain what was happening. It was there, buried deep in the local history, that she found it. The town of Carrington had once been home to a dark cult, an ancient order that worshipped an entity known as the Unseen Evil. It was said to be an ancient force that existed beyond the boundaries of the physical world, an evil so powerful, so malevolent, that it could not be seen or touched. But it could be felt. It could invade the minds of the living, slowly driving them to madness. The cult had been eradicated generations ago, but their leader, a man named Malachi, was said to have made a dark pact with the entity, one that would ensure its return. As Emma read on, she felt a cold, creeping sensation crawl up her spine. The pact Malachi had made was never meant to be broken. The unseen evil had been bound to the town for centuries, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And now, it was here. She could feel it now, its presence, its hunger, its twisted reach. The hum was louder than ever, a constant in her life, invading her every thought. And worst of all, she realized the truth. She wasn't just hearing the voice. She was becoming part of it. The unseen evil had taken root inside her mind, wrapping its tendrils around her very soul. It had been feeding off her fear, growing stronger with every passing day. She could no longer trust her senses. The town, the people, everything was warped, distorted by the malevolent force that now controlled them. Emma's mind began to unravel, her thoughts slipping away, like sand through her fingers. She no longer recognized the faces of the people she once knew. They had all become hollow, vessels for the entity's power. One night, in a final desperate attempt to free herself from the thing that had taken hold of her, Emma returned to the old cemetery. She had to stop it, whatever it took. But when she reached the tombstones, the earth began to tremble. The shadows lengthened, twisting and writhing as if alive. And there, standing in the center of the graveyard, was the thing that had been tormenting her, the unseen evil itself. It wasn't a creature, not in the way that she had imagined. It was more like an absence, an infinite void that consumed everything around it. It had no form, no shape, but it was there. She could feel it pressing against her, suffocating her, until there was nothing left but darkness. And in the dark, the voice spoke. "You are mine, Emma. You always were." With those final words, Emma's mind snapped. The last remnants of her humanity shattered as the unseen evil took full control. The town of Carrington, once a peaceful community, would never be the same again. The evil had spread, and now, it was everywhere. In every shadow. In every whisper. In every mind. The unseen evil was awake. And it would never let them go. To this day, the people of Carrington speak of the strange happenings that still plague the town. The missing townsfolk. The eerie whispers on the wind. The strange shadows that stretch impossibly long. But no one dares to talk about Emma Westbrook. They say she's still out there, somewhere in the town. In the shadows. Watching. Waiting. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear her voice, soft and cold in the back of your mind, whispering just one thing. You can't escape. The end. Thank you for listening. Please share and subscribe to Real Tales and Trails. See you next time.
Welcome back. That was an awesome story. I hope you really enjoyed it and learned a great lesson. Please don't forget to subscribe so you be the first to know when we upload new stories. Please subscribe to Real Tales and Trails. Subscribe at Real Tales and Trails. Thank you and see you in our next story.